Promote a culture of inclusion, supercharge your communication, and unleash the full potential of your teams and leaders with the Inclusive Handbook collection from the Diversity Movement. As part of the collection, I wrote the Inclusive Leadership Handbook with Kurt Merriweather to empower leaders with tools needed to cultivate a culture that fosters creativity, innovation, and employee engagement. Through strategies, exercises, and self-reflection, leaders at all levels can enhance their effectiveness. Learn more at thediversitymovement.com/store. Use code HOL at checkout for 25% of your first order.
DEI budgets are under attack, but the goals haven't changed. Whether you're looking to increase your DEI knowledge, expand your market reach, or gain a competitive advantage in business, we have the solution. TDM Library is your single source for expert-curated DEI resources, strategies, and solutions, all designed to help you transform your workplace culture and be a more effective contributor. For $9.99 per month, you get access to our searchable subscription-based digital library. There, you'll find articles, practical how-to guidebooks, podcasts, award-winning microvideos, and more than 700 Q&As, designed to help DEI practitioners, thought leaders, and executives create a more inclusive workplace. Whether you prefer to listen, watch, or read, we have the resources for you. TDM Library goes beyond the basics to dive deep into topics such as inclusive language, the business case for DEI, talent acquisition, and C-suite engagement. For less than the price of a sandwich, you get access to our library of more than 1,000 pieces of original, expert-curated DEI content. Join today and get your first 30 days free. Get your library card now at tdmlibrary.thediversitymovement.com.
You can't stop me, nothing's gonna stand in my way.
Welcome to the Donald Thompson podcast. Today I have with me a good friend of mine, business mentor, and a successful business owner and entrepreneur, Mr. Grant Willard. Grant, welcome to the show.
Hey, DT, it's great to be on the show with my mentor. I think we've gotten to the place where we are just learning a lot from each other. Every time we talk, we learn something from each other. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, amen to that, and I won't argue with you on that, but I think it's weighted one way, and I'm the recipient, so I'm the winner.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I enjoy doing with our guests is, why don't you just take a few minutes and talk about you a little bit? Where are you from? Brothers and sisters, married, kids, and let the audience just get to know you as an individual, and then we're going to dig into sustainability. We're going to dig into our environment and how these things impact business, how they impact diversity, equity, and inclusion. But let's just take a few minutes and get to know Grant Willard.
Yeah, so I'm Grant Willard. I'm a North Carolina native, grew up in Winston-Salem. My backyard was Wake Forest University. My dad worked for Wake Forest University for 35 years. I learned ACC basketball from a very early age. Went to school down here in Raleigh and married my high school sweetheart right as I was finishing school. Had been married to Laura, my soulmate, for 44 years. We have 2 kids, both married, and we have 2 grandchildren. Everything they say about being a grandparent is actually true. I got out of school and I had 3 jobs in 4 years. It was proven to me pretty quickly that if I wanted to be successful, I needed to do it on my own. I could not follow instructions very well. I am not a very good employee. So then went back to grad school at NC State and then formed a company as I was in grad school, and then just really enjoyed doing that. Grew that company. I struggled with growing that company and found what became a VP of sales. That guy is Donald Thompson. Donald and I then created something of genuine significance. We sold that to Adobe, and then I moved to California and spent 12 years in California. Then have moved back here about 3 or 4 years ago, and now I'm here in Raleigh.
Fantastic. Thanks for that insight. And I've had the opportunity to get to know your kids growing up and watching them become successful in their own right. I do want you to take a minute and talk about Maggie and John they're both doing great stuff also.
Yeah, they really are. Maggie is our oldest. Maggie also went to state. Then she went to Stanford, got her PhD in physics at Stanford, did a postdoc at UCSF, and now has landed back and is an assistant professor in physics at NC State. So we're real proud to have her back in Wolfpack Nation. So she has started a lab, a physics lab, has half a dozen folks working for her, 2 or 3 PhD candidates. What I've learned is that being a physics professor running a lab is really, it's all about entrepreneurship. Again, you've got to raise money to support your lab. You've got to recruit people to get their PhD, and you've got to be really smart about something. So she's just doing really well. Son John was one of the founders of Julebug. John worked with us for about 4 or 5 years. John also went to NC State in design and architecture. So John really put the brand, the Julebug brand together, created the voice, created the visual aesthetic of the app. John then jumped from there to where he's now at Autodesk. And John is leading a team of designers, creating some new product for them. They're going in, heavily into the construction space. They've always been in the design space, but he's leading the team of how do you get Autodesk products, AutoCAD, into the palm of construction workers? How do they use that design information on the job site?
That is awesome. And, the Wolfpack Nation has kind of adopted me based on your recommendation. And so we've located several companies on Centennial campus. And so one of the reasons that I wanted you to highlight your kids is you think about the success you've had with the North Carolina State background, Maggie and John. And so that's just a great testament for the Wolfpack Nation. And so I just wanted to throw that plug in as we continue to go. So now let's fast forward a little bit. You've created a company called Julebug. It is based around creating sustainable behaviors within organizations and corporations, making saving the environment fun, and how that can impact your business. Most people don't know they're supposed to care about the environment. So how do we start at a base level and educate our audience on what is sustainability and why it matters, why it impacts us?
Yeah, so it's taken me a long time to really understand that it's, like you say, it's a big word. It might be best to just kind of tell about the Julebug journey. I left Adobe, wanted to do something. I'd been in the enterprise software business my entire career and started wanting to do something with consumers. And iPhone apps were just becoming the thing. So I decided, why don't we, just kind of as a side hustle, side gig, why don't I see if I can create an app? And started out with making the app about how do you use less electricity? How do you make that fun? And we actually created an app that was all about using less electricity at home. And it was easy to take a picture and it was easy to share. And we thought we were going to be the Facebook for saving energy. And we quickly realized there is nothing social, there is nothing fun about using less electricity.
Right.
Yeah, we learned that very quickly. And so we said, okay, how do we get it social? How do we make it fun? And we then broadened from saving electricity to sustainability. And that was my introduction to sustainability, is that it's a way of using materials less. It's a way of looking after the environment. And it really starts when you get up and it ends when you go to bed. And really kind of the founding principles of sustainability are people, planet, and profit. How do you make all of this work so that it can continue to work forever? I mean, if you just make it about saving the planet, well, who wants to do that unless there is some motivation, and that would be profit? And how do you just look after people if it's just, it takes all three of those to really make sustainability work. And that's where I started getting educated. We were kind of approaching it from the environmental perspective.
Got it.
And there are a lot, and there have been environmentalists around since forever. Since John Muir created the Sierra Club, there have been environmentalists around, but it's always been kind of an elite group. It's always been just, people who had found their way to the top, had a lot of stuff, decided it was time to start saving, and they started trying to push that down.
Gotcha.
And it struck me as this is just a way of doing the things that Grandma taught me. Grandma was really, close the door, right? Turn off the lights. You don't need to use that. Don't put that on your plate if you're not going to eat it.
Why are you opening the refrigerator 4 times in 20 minutes?
Exactly.
That was my granny.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's that. And it's just like, and we all kind of rolled our eyes when my ma, your Grammy, said that. It's like, it's like, what difference does it make? And to anybody that came through the Depression or came through the hard times who was raised poor, it's like that little bit was a lot, right? And so it was like, okay, how do we take Grandma's lessons and give it to everybody? Because it's those little bits that have accumulated over the decades that has gotten the planet into trouble. It's that very little bit. We've just been kind of lazy about it. And so the idea became, how do we take Grammy's lessons, put them into an app, make it social, make it fun? And that's kind of the journey. And so we've been learning all along the way about the inventory of things that you can do. Grammy's lessons, everybody's Grammy's lessons are different, but there's an inventory of things that you can do of being more mindful of the planet, but also encouraging your neighbor to do the same, and also finding people that are willing. And what we've recently found is how do you get brands to help people make it fun in winning prizes and that sort of thing.
When you think about the environment, and I appreciate that background very much, how does it extend to the brands? Tell me some of the folks that have used the Jewelbug application, some of the things that they've learned through the process, because still, when I think about sustainability and I think about people and profit and planet, I still sometimes struggle linking it to an actual thing that I can do as a leader of a company. But you've been successful in getting brands to adopt this technology.
Yeah, I think that if we kind of just like, what's the precedent brand that kind of represents sustainability? There are several out there. I think the one that comes to my mind first would be Patagonia. You see the logo a lot. Yvon Chouinard, who started Patagonia, Chouinard was a mountain climber at Yosemite, but these things were paramount to him. And as he's grown his company, he has made sustainability part of the brand. So if you look at that, and that he was just a pioneer in that. And now there are other companies that are saying, how do I do that? And another, one of those brands is IKEA. How do I do that? They've decided that, they're competing with some companies that are making it cheaper, making things easier to buy. So how do you compete with that? They're making sustainability part of their brand. Mm. So if you want to be buying home furnishings and you want to figure out who to buy from, sustainability is part of IKEA's brand. Also, we've got, some other companies like the airlines are beginning to see that people are looking at, do I really want to fly because of the amount of carbon that it puts into the atmosphere? So there are airlines that are wanting to help their people who are flying use less. So Delta Airlines wants to use this to where people flying can learn how to be more sustainable, how to use less energy, how to use less resources. We've got other companies like Pizza Hut who want to get their employees to turn everything off when they leave. When their crew leaves at the end of the day, how do we incentivize our crew to make certain that they turn off every single light, every single thing that they use during the day? How do they turn it off before they leave? They use the app to incentivize their employees to turn things off.
Oh, it's powerful. One of the things from a learning standpoint, I've been excited for us to talk in detail on some of these things. I hear the term a lot, carbon footprint.
Yep.
And people that are in the sustainability space, environmental space, or really any space, if you're a big football person, right? And you talk about down and distance, right? And you talk about the red zone. You use all these acronyms that somebody that's not into football can't really follow the conversation. Right. And so can you explain to me what carbon footprint means and why that matters, that it's up or down, right? For an organization, a country, or a corporation?
Yeah. So, a carbon footprint is really just how much carbon is an individual responsible for. Whenever we drive our car, you've got gas, whatever size car you've got gas mileage, and that car is emitting carbon into the atmosphere. We all have homes that have lights, have refrigeration, have heating. Depending on how many lights are LEDs versus how many are incandescents, depending on what you set your thermostat on, depending on how many times you open that refrigerator door, depends on how much electricity we use. That electricity is generated from burning coal, burning natural gas, or from wind turbines or solar farms. So depending on who you buy from, how much you use, depends on how much carbon that you're responsible for emitting. So how much you drive, how much electricity you use, how much you fly, that then each of us has an amount of carbon that we're responsible for. So that's what each individual's carbon footprint is. Why that matters is that we've known for some time that the amount of carbon that is put into the atmosphere on an annual basis contributes to climate change. Carbon is one of those things that keeps the earth warming. It's like a blanket on the earth. So the more carbon we have, the thicker the blanket is on the earth, and over time, the warmer the planet gets. Now, certainly it's like the stock market. It doesn't go up every single day. There are going to be down days, there are going to be up days. But as time marches on, the thicker the blanket, the thicker the carbon blanket, the warmer the earth gets. And then that's when we have climate change.
So, all right, I get it. That makes sense. That's a very clear, basic example. So let's dig in a little bit. Why are people denying that climate change exists, right? Like, there's people that are big proponents of reducing one's carbon footprint. And then there's people that seem to want to not acknowledge the existence of global warming.
Donald, now you're asking some hard questions, right? You're asking some hard questions. I think that there's a couple things. I think that, let's face it, there are not many of us that really find this sort of thing interesting. You mentioned that football and red zone, there are a lot more people that find seeing their alma mater in the red zone much more interesting than listening about carbon footprint. So there's a lot of the population that's just like, it's just not interesting. They've got exciting lives, and they want to do the fun stuff. So there's just a portion that just haven't. It's just not important. I mean, it's not that it's not important. It's just that they've got other things that are much more, have their mind share much more than this does. There are also some entrenched players who are making a tremendous amount of money off of carbon. I mean, that would start with ExxonMobil and their competitors, closely followed by Duke Energy and all of the people that are supplying us electricity. And so then also you have the situation where, let's face it, we like electricity. We like our car. We like to be warm. We like to be clean. We like for the convenience of electricity. So the idea that it's bad, most of us don't have many things in our lives that we really, really like that are really bad. So there is this, I don't really want to learn about something I really like that's bad. And then you've got folks that are really entrenched in it, and they have paid to advertise on why to make it complex. I mean, there are a lot of people that as we use less and less oil because we're using more and more electric vehicles, there are going to be some losers in that journey. And though, as it so happens, those people that are going to lose the most have the most money right now. Let's face it, ExxonMobil has made a lot of people very rich. ExxonMobil is a huge company that has been very successful, and they do not want to lose that quickly. They need time to transition, and they are buying time by raising questions that we do not need to be asking any longer.
Yep. No, that makes sense. And I think that, one of the things that is a responsibility for pushing through something new, right, is how do you educate people that have an intrinsic bias, right, against what you're learning. So one of the things I would ask you is, like, it seems pretty simple to talk about sustainability and the people, profit, planet with people that want to hear about it. How do you bring people stair step? What are some of the small examples you use when if somebody's closed minded, you're not going to be able to mess with them, right? I'm really talking about the person that wants to know but just doesn't get it, skeptical but kind of optimistic. Like, what examples would you use to bring somebody into the fold, right? That sustainability is important. Thinking about your environment's important. It's good for your business. Your employees want it. What examples would you use to bring that person along?
One's got to develop. I mean, let's be clear that in order to understand this, takes time. Some of these concepts are not easy. In order to shed ourselves of some of the things that we like to be replaced by something that may not be quite as good, we have to figure out how to do that. And in order for that to take place, a currency has to be developed to make that transaction, to make everybody whole. If I would like for you to learn something that's interesting to me, important to me, and you'd rather watch football, I've got to create some way to make you feel like it's a better option than doing something more entertaining. And that currency is something that has to be developed, and that's what has to happen in order to pull people on board. And that's really what we have focused on with Julebug, is creating a currency to encourage and reward people to be more sustainable. And really, once you kind of learn, well, it really isn't that hard to ask the waiter or waitress, I don't need a straw.
Yep.
When they're paid by the company that sells straws to put them on your table, and then as soon, whether you use it or not, they get thrown away. And we do that all the time. And that's what they're paid to do. All you've got to do is say, don't like the straw. It stays in their pocket. It's never used. But how do we get people? And it's not hard.
Yep.
It's not hard if you stop doing your entertaining life and kind of listen to this for a second. And then it's like, that's what grandma would have said if she'd gone to places that gave out straws.
Yeah. What are some of the base behaviors that aren't complicated if we just have them a little bit more top of mind?
Correct.
And I think that, it's all about how you're educated and the people that influence you. So our partnership over the years has me thinking about environment, my behaviors differently than I would have. It doesn't mean like I'm all the way there. It just means like I'm open to being educated. I'm a little bit more thoughtful when I'm making decisions, and that's a good thing. Let's broaden the conversation a little bit, because Julebug now started around sustainability, saving electricity, as you alluded to, but you've ultimately built out a platform that is now driving employee engagement.
Yep.
And I want to understand how you moved from that and pivoted forward to now creating a tool that can be explosive with remote workers, with employee engagement, with onboarding tools, as well as sustainability and wellness and fitness. Tell us a little bit about the evolution of Julebug and the different offerings you have today.
So we created a currency to reward sustainable behavior. So Julebug has always differentiated itself in that Julebug wanted you to take action, not read about it, not look at it, but actually do something. So we created a game to do that. And then in order to get people to play and enjoy the game, we gave out prizes/rewards. And those come in many different factors. One is you could just be kind of a gamer, so to speak, and you wanted to be on the electronic podium. Some people, that doesn't turn them on. They want to actually have a prize. So that you wanted to win a multi-$1,000 IKEA home makeover. So that's one of the things that IKEA does. They use literally thousands of dollars of prizes to get large numbers of people to participate in order to win a prize and play. At the other end of the spectrum, if another thing that IKEA is doing, if you do a single action, they'll give you an ice cream cone, literally. Show them that you've done something. So the other thing that people do is they take pictures. You would not believe how creative people can be in taking pictures of how I refused a straw, or how I took a shorter shower. There are all kinds of, lots of people want to have an Instagram moment, and they want to center that around being sustainable. All of these are ways that will, encourage and reward people to take sustainable action.
That's really cool. I mean, I think that, the ability to take the sustainable action, and then what you've done is transition that same thought process to fitness and wellness contests within.
Well, I think that it's take your favorite restaurant. If you went to your favorite restaurant every night, every week, it would not be your favorite after a while. You need variety. So we've seen the joy that people get from having a sustainability challenge, but if you do them too frequently, they get tired of it. So this is where then we started adding new types of content. So we added nutrition, we added fitness, we added volunteering, we've added diversity and equity. So we feel like you can take desired behaviors. Any organization, any community can take desired behaviors, what's important to them. They can make it bite-sized. They can put points on it, and then you can create a challenge. You can take and give points for the best picture, give points for awards for whoever gets the most points. So that's how we've taken the idea around sustainable behavior and used that as a platform and then expanded it to many other activities that you mentioned.
No, that's awesome. One of the things that as I think about some of the clients that you mentioned when we were talking about Julebug, right? Pizza Hut, Delta, IKEA, right? And this is a bootstrap startup firm, right? And then when I think about our experience together at iCubed and deals that you led with Adobe and Autodesk and Katia and IBM. So what I want to pivot to a little bit, because our audience will be interested in this, as a small company entrepreneur, you have served in your software experience in enterprise software some of the largest companies in the world. What is it about you that is always big game hunting? That your first big client for Julebug is IKEA. The first big client for, what was the name of the product we sold to Adobe? Fileline.
Fileline
was IBM, right? Like your first big clients are all multinational clients. How do you do that? How do you stay on the cutting edge of technology that these big companies will even take your call? How does that happen?
I wish I had a good answer. I mean, I think that it sounds like it's by design. It sounds like it's something that, it has happened more than once. So it does sound like it's by design, but really it's just stumbling into it. What made your and my partnership really work is you really are a people person, and you really are a great salesperson. You're really just a leader of people. My passion is product. Whether it's I'm a trained engineer, but I really like looking or hearing about something that is a need, and then kind of taking my engineering skills, my engineering design skills, and then applying them to software. And then along the way, I've kind of, I've worked around enterprises enough to where I understand how they work, and that, so I have a high threshold for risk. I'm comfortable with risk. Most large companies have a very low threshold for risk. So if you can kind of take that and present it to them, and show them how they can scale it, they like it. So I am pretty good at selling a quantity of one, but then turning the crank and working with people versus product. I really kind of tend toward the product. So that's kind of where your and my skills have worked well over the years. Is you like the people side, I like the product side. We work together and kind of take it into big companies.
Yeah, as I reflect, because I think about that a lot, right? I've talked to a lot of salespeople over the years, and we've done a pretty good job at getting our products and services into some pretty large organizations. And I think one of the things is we're naive enough to just think we can do it. Like there's a certain amount of just like,
yeah, I mean, you hate to say on something like a podcast or something that's going to live for a while that you're just cocky enough to do it. Yeah. And I think that I like to think of it that I'm just not afraid of anything versus I'm cocksure enough to think I'm going to do it.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go with the
yeah. I mean that saying that I'm adverse to risk is just a nice way of saying that I'm cocky. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think to folks that are listening that have a business and have a business idea and a concept, right? One of the things that you taught me early on that I want to share with our audience is large companies are made up of individuals that have goals that they need to meet, a boss that they're trying to please, families they're trying to grow. And if you can help that individual within an enterprise be successful, they'll help you navigate through the enterprise, right? Yeah. And I think that, one of the things I've seen you do over the years by multiple times is when we found a partner in a big company, we made it our goal to make them successful also. Yeah. Right. And we've seen a lot of folks that we worked with over the years grow within their company because we made picking us make them look good. Yes. And we worked really hard to make that true. Yeah. Right. When somebody bet on us. And I remember one of our walks around Centennial campus, we just talked about not letting the trust down of the person that selected us. Right. That led us in that door. And I'll never forget that. Right. It's something that really has helped me. Not just the confidence to go after big companies, but the humility that if somebody gives you a shot, to not let that person down.
Well, I think some of the best successes we've had is when we actually made a mistake with a customer where we had maybe overpromised a little bit, maybe underdelivered a little bit, and the customer was not happy with us. And that's when we rolled up our sleeves and demonstrated that we're going to make it right. Mm-hmm. And then that's when it's like you say, we're looking after the person that bought us. We put somebody in a little bit of a jam, but then we rolled up our sleeves and made them successful. And it's when you do that, when you actually do that, you have a customer for life. And you not only do you have a customer for life, but some of the folks that I've done that with, I actually have friends for life. People all over the country that I can call that we've had a great business relationship that's turned into a lasting friendship.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, I'm glad that we at least touched on that a little bit because that's part of the JewelBug as a platform. I'm a consumer of that. Many of the companies I work with use it, so I'm a big fan. But I think the effort behind the building out of that platform and having folks like IKEA and Delta and Pizza Hut and the city of Austin select your team is a really powerful testament, right? To being able to build enterprise software, even though individuals are using it, right? Yeah. To have that quality, that robustness that is there. Let me ask you this final question for me, and then I want to see if there's anything you wanted to share. When we take a step back and we look at how do we change behavior within organizations, it's not just the tool, right? Like JewelBug's amazing, but JewelBug isn't a magic wand, right? You've said like JewelBug's not magic, but it is a facilitator, a catalyst for these things. What other things should companies be thinking about when they're engaging their employees, when they're trying to make that engagement real and measurable and that powerful relationship with culture in their employment base?
When I started my career way back when, and there was electricity, when I started my career, Milton Friedman had just earned his Nobel, and his Nobel was around that the only thing that an organization is supposed to do is make a profit, and that everything is derived from the bottom line, making a profit. Today, I think that that's pretty far from the truth. I think people that are looking at careers today absolutely want to work for somebody that cares about more than the bottom line. And every organization, as you bring in young folks today, those folks are the ones that are going to save the world because they want to work for somebody that cares about more than the bottom line. So as an organization, you need to, table stakes are you need to pay people a good wage. A good wage doesn't have to be top dollar, but it has to be a good wage. But in addition to that, you need to demonstrate that you care about their well-being, their genuine well-being, their balance of life, and that you care about the community that you live in, that they live in, that you operate in, and that you demonstrate through your actions how to do that. Julebug is one way to do that. Julebug is a way to enhance corporate initiatives. But it's just sort of a way. I mean, we are not your corporate initiative program. We are a way to enhance whatever your initiative is, and those initiatives better be about more than you making money. And that's I think anybody that's that is responsible for hiring people needs to be thinking about, is aware that you need to demonstrate how you care about your community. And when you're a multinational, you're in communities all over everywhere.
Yep.
We're beginning to work with K&N. They're the second largest shipping company in the world. They have 2,400 branches around the world. 2,400. And they want all of those folks to be thinking about sustainability. And we're just a way to help them. So that we didn't start. It didn't start with Julebug. It starts with their company wants to, which has a huge carbon footprint. They want to get people thinking, knowing that they care, and this is the way for them to communicate. But you need an initiative that gives people a mission broader than just we ship stuff, but we are mindful of the environment when we ship stuff. That's who people want to work for. Given the choice between working for a shipping company that doesn't care versus a shipping company that does care, people are going to choose that does care all the time.
Yep. That's powerful. I don't want to add to that. It was a great way to close in talking about Julebug, educating us on carbon footprint and sustainability, but then how your platform now is not morphed, but matured into a cultural engagement tool, right, for companies and allowing them to meet their clients and companies where they are. Grant, it's always good to talk to you. It's always makes my day to do it, but this has been great. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the time.
I doubt, I fear, I question my drive. I tell myself I'm worth it. No one's perfect. I gotta try. I'm working at my craft.
This podcast is edited and produced by Earfluence. If you're looking for more information on how full-service podcast production can amplify your voice, build your community, visit earfluence.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon on the Donald Thompson podcast.